Welcome to Phil and Ted's Sexy Boomer Show with your hosts, Phil Proctor and Ted Bonnet. Phil and Ted's guest today is master juggler, comedian, playwright, and co-founder of the world-renowned Flying Karamazov Brothers, Paul Magid. Paul perfected the art of street performance and juggled his way into a global touring sensation at a hit Broadway show. And now, your sexy boomer hosts, Phil Proctor and Ted Bonnet.
Welcome to Phil and Ted's Sexy Boomer Show. I'm Ted Bonnet.
That means I must be sexy Phil Proctor, right? Just by process of elimination, which is how I started my day.
Oh, my God.
There we go. It's already down the toilet.
Well, today we're talking with a very special guest who happens to be a long friend of mine. How long are you? Anyway, we've known one another for a long, long time and spent a lot of time together in various places, which we can talk about a little bit later. But before we begin, Paul Magid, we have to know how to pronounce your name.
Paul Magid. I'm a member of the Magidim, storytellers. That's actually what my name means.
Storytellers. Yeah, and you told me once what your name, and what would it be, in Sephardic or something?
No, it's in Hebrew. In Hebrew, my real name, Paul is the name that they gave me to protect me from the Christians. So my real name is Peretz David Magid, which means the beloved storyteller who pushes through. I swear to God, that's what it means.
Wow.
It's a pretty good name, huh?
That's what you do. Yeah. See, my name, Phil Proctor. Philippus means lover of horses, and Proctor is a procurer. Proctorus, right? A middleman. So I'm a procurer of horses. So very special sexual taste.
You're wanted in about 8 states. Well, Paul, most people will know you as a founding member of the Flying Karamazov Brothers, the wonderful, incredible juggling troupe. Would you please explain about the brothers?
Well, long ago, when Nixon was still president of the United States, and we were still at war in Vietnam, my partner, Howard Patterson, and I were going to school at UC Santa Cruz. That's the University of California at Santa Cruz. And we kind of didn't really like each other at first, although his father helped take the door off my dorm room doorway because I couldn't move in my sofa from my grandfather. So I met him sort of that way. And then we had the same girlfriend for a while, which is, Santa Cruz kind of a thing. Then Howard, maybe from the girlfriend, we're not certain, maybe it was a doorknob, got mononucleosis and had to not be in school for a while because he was just so ill. And he couldn't do anything but eat, sleep, and juggle. So goes the story. And so he just spent time juggling, and he learned a few tricks. And he had some friends from LA who had showed him a couple of juggling tricks, and he came back, he could do a few tricks, and I saw him doing them, and I went, well, if he can do it, I can do it. So we started juggling and learning tricks, and next thing you know, we were passing. And I was in theater at the University of California, and I was in a bunch of plays, and Howard and I started inventing this whole world of juggling. We didn't know anybody really who had any system. We didn't go to school for juggling or anything. We invented our entire system. We completely invented. And anyway, we had a couple of really cool things that we thought were pretty neat. We had a bawdy ballad from Elizabethan England, Tales to Purge Melancholy, I think it was from. And it was Tom Tinker's My True Love. Was our first bit, and which is a very bawdy little Elizabethan song. And we did it while singing it and juggling and throwing balls back and forth between each other on certain beats. And we've kind of been doing that ever since. But anyway, that's how it got started. And then I think we opened for a play I was in. It was a a Commedia dell'arte play, The Servant of Two Masters. You probably know that one.
Oh, yeah.
By Goldone and or Goldoni, I think. And we got a better reception than the play did, which of course was not very hard. And we thought, hey, there's something here. And then the next thing you know, we were, juggling at the beginnings of plays. Actually, that's how we got started, was opening for plays. And then we also went to a Renaissance fair in Agura, which you guys probably remember that.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't that where we met? Yeah,
Yes.
Firesign Theater performed our Shakespearean parody, Anything You Want To, or Shakespeare's Lost Comedy, in its initial form, which was Waiting for the Count of Monte Cristo or something like it. All right, or him, whatever, of those titles. And we saw you guys doing your juggling act.
That's right.
And immediately fell in love with you. Fell on the ground, actually, you laughing. And we became friends then and have been friends ever since. It's amazing.
So Howard and I went to one in 1973 in the spring, and we put out a hat, or actually we just took off our hats, I think. We weren't even thinking about making money, and people put money in it. And we went, wait a minute. You can have fun doing silly stuff and make money at the same time. Bingo!
That's the game.
The light went on, and it's been downhill ever since.
Was it always called the Flying Karamazov Brothers?
No, actually, no. Howard and I came up with a bunch of different names which never stuck. There was Snout and Glib. I was Snout, of course, for obvious reasons which you can't see on the radio. And there was Muck and Meyer, but it's spelled differently than you might think. Various names like that, but none of them ever took. There was Patterson and Magid, I think, and a lot of controversy about whose name should go first. So, we started doing it as a duo, and we, in fact, came up with an hour-long show. And I just found the poster for that. I've been going through my things, as one is wont to do when you start getting towards 7 decades of age. Because who knows, you don't want to leave a mess for somebody else. And I found the first poster to our first show. And it was pretty cool. And so we did these at various colleges at Santa Cruz. Santa Cruz is divided up into different colleges, kind of on the Oxford, Cambridge kind of way. So we came up with this hour-long show, and it was a huge hit. And it was, we just wrote all this sort of stuff and realized that we had a knack for comedy. And that's what we kind of realized. I mean, I always realized from the beginning that what we were doing was not a juggling act. It was, it was really comedy and theater kind of mixed together.
You could say it was an act in the jugular vein, couldn't you?
Ooh, I might just slice that at the jugular vein. No.
So it was your roommate that started juggling when he had mononucleosis. What?
Well, actually, he lived across the hall from me.
I see. So he was a neighbor who had mononucleosis and started juggling. So how did you get interested in juggling?
Well, we both had learned to juggle beforehand. So I was a varsity tennis player, and when you're waiting around for a match, because there's more people than there are courts available, you've got a can with 3 balls in it, and lots of time on your hands. And if you're like me, you go, I think I remember seeing a juggler when I was like 8 or 9. And this guy, it seemed like he juggled 20 things. Of course, I know he didn't, but it seemed like it was, he did the impossible. So anyway, I figured that out by myself. And Howard, I think, started on Walnuts down in L.A. He's from North Hollywood. I don't know if they call it North Hollywood anymore.
Now it's NoHo.
NoHo and no hope. So we both knew the basic way to make juggling happen with 2 hands and 3 balls, but we hadn't learned any tricks or anything. And so, we just got obsessed. And actually, there was kind of a movement that went through all the campuses in America at that point of people learning how to juggle. It was a very strange thing. Only we kind of took it to a much farther extent. We got very obsessed. We started doing 8 hours of rehearsal or practice a day of juggling, and coming up with all these theories about it and how it would work, and then thinking about it in musical terms. Like Howard wasn't so much seeing the juggling as he was hearing the juggling. Yeah, Howard is technically blind. He had these huge, thick glasses, which he doesn't have anymore because he has.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and so he was definitely your typical Jewish, shtetl, bookish kind of guy.
A blind juggler?
Well, not he was, what do you call it, legally blind.
Still,
but with his glasses, he could see.
Yeah. That's fascinating because juggling is eye-to-hand coordination.
Yes,
Yeah.
but juggling, as we discovered, is really just another form of music, right? It's all about rhythm and symmetry, and there's all these patterns that you can actually write them out as numbers and equations. In fact, lots of jugglers tend to be scientists and mathematicians and musicians because it's all kind of the same stuff. And that's something we realized right away, especially Howard realized it because he really was someone who saw or heard the world more than he saw it in many ways.
Did he play any instruments?
Oh, he played lots of instruments. Yeah, he's quite a brass player. His main horn was the euphonium or baritone horn, but he's also a trombonist, and he played in sackbut, if you know what that is. And I don't know if I can use that term on the radio. I played clarinet and saxophone. So we, especially Howard, saw things in musical terms.
You integrated music into your act. Did that start with the two of you?
Yes, immediately.
Then later you did extraordinary percussive juggling using special pins, the juggling pins that you invented, I guess, right?
Yeah, I mean, we have many, many different kinds of percussive things. And we also actually make music while juggling. We play Bach's two-part invention in D minor on a marimba while juggling, with each of us being one of the other hand, left hand and the right hand. And play it note for note.
For people who haven't seen it, you're bouncing the balls off of the marimba.
We're juggling wooden mallets that we had turned at a shop in Ireland many years ago.
Oh.
And then we have like rubber around the mallets, and they had to be a certain weight because in order to be precise while juggling over marimba, we had to invent this whole method to make it work out, because you're playing a lot of different notes very quickly with both hands, and you have to move back and forth over the marimba, and the mallets have to have a certain kind of heaviness to them in order to control them properly.
Yeah.
We started exploring making music while playing on a marimba, and we started off with simple things like playing a blues pattern and improvising off the blues pattern, because you can see through your pattern. I mean, there's so many things about juggling if you want to talk about it, but juggling is something that you have to have many intelligences, as they say, in order to accomplish it. And then if you push it farther, like doing musical juggling, you have to have even more. And which is to say that you have to you're doing many different things at the same time. Right, like we have a bit with the marimba, which is the stupid end of the marimba juggling, but the most complicated and difficult one, which is of course what the finest stupid things are the most difficult things to do. And this is where we sing "I'm Forever Blowing Bubbles" while in harmony, while juggling over marimba and playing the tune in harmony on the marimba, tap dancing, and we wear funny hats on our heads with bells on them, and then we're playing the bells in different rhythms while we're doing all of this. And we're chewing gum, of course, and then we end up by playing harmonicas while we're doing a very difficult tap number and continuing to play and juggle over the marimba.
How much rehearsal was involved in that?
Oh my God, that was one of the most embarrassing things ever, right? You throw the marimba mallet and hit a note and try to do the tap thing. And, at first it just seems like this is so stupid. I hope nobody's watching me. It's never going to happen. And then weeks later, suddenly it's all coming together.
I never thought of juggling being certainly mathematical makes sense, but to do it by ear. as much as by sight. Obviously, it's all timing. I would like to dip a little into the juggling thing. The history of juggling culturally, how long it's been around, probably since the beginning of time, right?
Certainly since there's been mass agriculture. There are the earliest known images of people juggling are Egyptian ones, like from 4,000 years ago. Yeah. And there's some beautiful Etruscan paintings of people juggling. So I think it's been around quite a while. Obviously, I think probably even older than that. There's certainly no cave paintings of jugglers, but I wouldn't be surprised if you were like sitting around waiting for, on the mammoth hunt, waiting for the mammoth to come by, and you've got like
See a couple of rocks there.
3 clubs in your hands or something like that.
Oh, yeah, clubs, right?
Yeah, so I mean, it's been around for a long time. It's something that really primates pay a lot of attention to. We've done some experiments with going to zoos and juggling for the animals, and primates are they all react very differently, one from the other. Like gibbons think it is the most incredible thing that they have ever seen. And when you juggle for the gibbons, they all come flying out of their branches and hang in front of the cage, like this, going, "Oh my God, do you see that? I want to do that. I want to learn that. I want to figure out how that works. I've got to know." Because their whole thing is spatial and flying, it's like, it's just amazing to them. And then chimpanzees are really funny. Not bonobos, but chimpanzees are funny because the female chimpanzees think it's the best thing since sliced bread. They just are like, "Wow, look at that. That's incredible." But the guys go, "Who the hell are these guys? Those are my women." And they generally go back into their caves and come out with lots of shit and throw it at you.
Yeah, kind of like your audience.
I was going to say,
Yeah, exactly.
the more difficult shows weren't far from that.
That's true. I remember a really difficult show once. We were playing for Hot Tuna. Do you remember those guys?
Sure.
Where was that? It was in Bimbo's in San Francisco. I don't know if you guys remember that place. Bimbo's 365 or something like that. But we went on, and obviously the audience didn't want to have anything to do with anything but hot tuna. And we went on, and the crowd it was like we were going to die. I thought we were going to die. They were like screaming at us and threatening us, like, "Why are you doing this?"
Oh, no.
That was a tough crowd.
How does that affect your concentration when people are threatening you?
Well, it's a funny thing. Juggling is a great thing for being able to concentrate under almost any circumstance. It really, one of the other things about juggling, I know we're kind of rambling here, but is that it really teaches you how to control time and slow it down. Actually slow down time. And, because time is really just a perception in many ways. Mm-hmm. And, anyone who's been in a terrible accident and watched time slow down suddenly can tell you it's really, and in juggling, things are going much faster, especially when you're passing with people, much faster than you could think, right? You can't consciously think about it. You have to, in a way you can, because you slow down time in a certain way so that you can actually deal with the things coming at speed. When you guys are looking at what we're doing, what the Karamazovs are doing, for instance, from the audience point of view, it seems really fast and all this stuff's going on. But when you're inside it, it's really slow.
Really?
Yeah, it's very interesting that way. And, especially if you're like on some sort of, like window pane or something like that.
Well, no,
not that I've ever had any, but if I had some.
Yeah. Well, this is absolutely fascinating. So stick around for some more amazing stories from the magical Paul Magid of the Flying Karamazov Brothers.
You're listening to Phil and Ted's Sexy Boomer Show with Phil Proctor and Ted Bonnet. To hear all the Sexy Boomer shows, go to sexyboomershow.com. Tell your friends about the Sexy Boomer Show and help us build our audience. To be notified when a new episode is posted, press the subscribe button in your podcast player. And if you'd like to toss something in the tip jar to boost our show, Look for the donate button on our website, sexyboomershow.com. Any amount is greatly appreciated, and for $20, we'll send you an attractive Sexy Boomer Show bumper sticker designed to help you get lucky. Back to Phil and Ted and their special guest, juggler, comedian, playwright, and co-founder of the world-renowned Flying Karamazov Brothers, Paul Magid.
Okay, we're back again to hear some more amazing stories from the mind and heart of Paul Magid, the co-founder of America's greatest juggling act ever, the Flying Karamazov Brothers.
There was a video I watched on YouTube of one of your performances where there were 5 of you, and you were moving like in a star formation in and out of each other as you were juggling all amongst yourselves.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I couldn't even imagine how you did that.
Well, again, it's all about it's music. So one of the things we do is we write these things down often on music paper, right? So we've developed a kind of notation to be able to write juggling pieces so that anyone could learn them, right? And you can just read it down on a piece of paper and know what you're supposed to do when you're supposed to do it. And then, of course, the real trick is getting everything so everybody is all what we call synced up, so we're all in exactly the same time, and we're throwing at the same moment. Because the funny thing about juggling, like compared to magic, for instance, magic is really about, trying to deceive somebody, basically, right? Like, it's a lot of skill, but it's the skill of,
Misdirection.
And making people to look where you want them to look when you are doing whatever it is you're doing to make the magic trick happen. Whereas in juggling, you want everybody to see everything you're doing, right? And they still can't believe it, even though. And that's why the first play I ever wrote, which was in 1976. Was a play for all these street people that, vaudevillians basically is what we called ourselves. New vaudevillians, new wave vaudevillians. It was called Everything You're About to See is Actually Happening. Because that was the whole point of it, was like, we really want you to understand and see what we're actually able to accomplish. And it's kind of, in a way, real magic happening before your eyes. And that's, I think, part of it. Probably the primal pleasure you get out of watching juggling.
When you said you get the cues going between all of you to get into syncopation, how do you do that? Do you do like a verbal cue or something to get into sync?
Well, no, we all you can hear it. So, you want everybody's right hand to be moving at the same time as everybody else's right hand, and also with your left hand, and then you can hear the beat, right? And if somebody's off, it won't go. It'll all sound like one note if you're all in sync. If you are slightly off, you'll hear there's a stutter in the pattern. And you can see visually that all the right hands are moving at the same time and the left hands are moving at the same time. You can hear the slap of the club or the ball against your hand. So you have all these various clues about what's going on in order for you to be in a synchronous situation with everybody else. And then one of the important things that you need to do also is be able to look through your pattern, right? So you're looking at everybody else. You're not actually looking at what you're doing. And so most people think you're watching yourself juggling because, how else could you do it? In fact, you never are looking at your hands at all when you're doing it professionally. You're looking at everybody else, especially when you're an ensemble group like we are. And we mostly do ensemble juggling.
Yeah, I've noticed that with singular jugglers, when they're like juggling 3 balls, for example, they're not looking at their hands. They're looking sort of straight ahead.
Yeah, or slightly up a little bit, The important information is when the ball is losing its energy and is cresting at the top, right, of the arc, and then is about to come down. That's when you throw the next object.
If you had objects that when you caught them, they made a musical tone, you could do a Philip Glass composition.
We have done things like that. So we have done many, many things. We've played with many orchestras. Most of the biggest orchestras in the country we've played with. And we have 3 different orchestra shows. And the orchestras really get what it is that we're doing. That's really fun. In fact, when we do that piece with the marimba, the 2-part invention, the Bach 2-part invention, that we don't ever tell them that we're going to do that, and they don't watch us. We never rehearse it in front of them. And when we do it, it's the orchestra, not so much the audience. The orchestra is just like going, "Oh my God, I can't believe they're actually doing that." So, and then we usually get, the biggest ovations from them.
Is this an orchestra of chimpanzees?
No, don't call them that. They're union chimpanzees.
So far, you've been talking about Patterson and you and how you evolved the act. But when I saw you guys working, I've seen you working over the years in various iterations, and it did get up to 5 guys who were doing it. How did that evolve?
First, it was Howard and I, and then I thought we should expand it, and I thought the best actor in the world was my friend Randy Nelson, who's also known as the blonde guy. He's incredibly blonde, and he's an amazing performer, a wonderful artist, and he didn't know how to juggle at all.
Oh, my God.
He learned on the street. We actually got him involved in 1974 when we went on our worldwide tour which turned out to be going to Spokane, Washington for the 74 World's Fair. And it's just where we got our name, by the way. It was, while we were hitchhiking, that's how we got around in the early years. We hitchhiked. Wow. And trying to get the gigs on time, hitchhiking. Back then it was almost plausible. Anyway, one of the rides we got, our last ride before we got to Spokane to the World's Fair, which is the biggest gig we'd ever done at that point. And we didn't have a real name yet. We had the ones I told you about, but not one that included Randy, really. And so we were scanning around for a name. And while we were hitchhiking, we got picked up by 2 very pretty young women. One was Mary Sullivan, who turned out to be the niece of Ed Sullivan. And we thought, oh my God, this is like so portentous. This means something. and she had come west with her friend Mona Poga, a Latvian, to look for to get Coors Beer, which you couldn't get out on the East Coast at that time. So they were on, a pilgrimage for Coors Beer, which is hard to imagine at this point. But anyway, we got a ride with those guys, and we were like, "Oh man, this is great!" And we were kind of like hoping something was going to happen, but the girls weren't weren't really that interested in a bunch of slovenly jugglers like us. So we slept out in a field of corn just before we got to Spokane. And we were like, we got to come up with a name. And Howard was reading the Brothers Karamazov at that time. I had read it beforehand. And I thought, oh, yeah, that would be great. The characters from that book are kind of like, tragic comic characters. And I thought we could be sort of the other side of that, and it would be kind of a funny thing to call it the Flying Karamazov Brothers, sort of this tragic comic, circus act. And so that's how I got my name. I'm Dmitri, and Randy was Alyosha, the very religious, serious one, and Howard was the intellectual one, Ivan. And then when Tim joined the next year, he really joined he was a juggler. We'd never met another juggler really like that serious, and he had juggling clubs. We didn't know at the time when we met Tim that you could juggle things other than things that were incredibly dangerous. Right? we really hadn't thought about juggling clubs. We were juggling knives and sickles, and that was like part of our act, and torches. That was basically anything that was like really painful and could really hurt you badly. That's what made a juggling act. This is when we were 18, right? We thought, and I think I was talking to you, Ted, yesterday about how it was very important to us that you could get really badly hurt by the juggling equipment. If you know, everything had to be really sharp,
very sharp, just like you. And of course you were. And again, you were going for the juggler, but it was the juggler in your neck.
It often happened. Yes, I mean we did get cut quite seriously.
Really,
when I watched your juggling of the sickle, I thought, well, they must be dull sickles. Or they must be.
I think at that point they were dull because we realized no one really cared.
Except you.
It was only us who really cared.
So when you're juggling knives, and sharp sickles, there is a real danger there. I mean, did you ever have a mishap?
Yeah. When we bought these handmade knives, unbelievably sharp knives. And knives are not the easiest thing to juggle because the handle is the heavy part, right? And you really, to make the flip happen, the heavy part has to be at the end because you don't want to catch them by the sharp end, obviously, to get them to work for you.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And we were doing this show, a street show, and we were juggling these incredibly sharp knives and passing them. And one of them, unfortunately, landed erroneously in my hand and cut the hell out of me. And blood was splurting everywhere. And the audience just thought it was the funniest thing they'd ever seen because there was so much blood, it had to be fake. You know? And that's when I realized that that's a certain part of show business that's really interesting. Like when disaster happens, like when Lincoln got shot, was that part of the play?
Yeah.
They didn't know, right? And I remember one time I was we were doing Comedy of Errors at the Vivian Beaumont on Broadway. And one of the parts of the show was to come sliding down this rope on a 8-ring, which is a mountaineering piece of equipment. And I had been a mountain climber in my youth. And so I was quite familiar with it, but the way the lighting is at the Vivian Beaumont, it wasn't made really to be a theater so much as like an exhibition hall or something. So I was coming down the line, but in order to get through all this lighting, I developed this technique of throwing the line and jumping at the same time, right? Mm-hmm. Which was a little bit dangerous. And so I threw the line. And I had a glove on one hand as you were sliding down the rope. You didn't want to have your bare hands, right? And I jumped out of where up there in the rigging, jumped out of my seat, and all of a sudden my hand slipped out of the wristband that was going around my hand in order to hold me on the 8-ring, and I was suddenly in midair.
Ooh.
And me and the tech guy both had 30 feet in the air, and me and the tech guy both looked at each other and had the same feeling that it was like, what's his name? Wile E. Coyote, when he runs off the cliff.
Yeah.
And he for a second goes, whoa, uh-oh, psh, And
no.
I swear to God, that's exactly what happened. And the tech guy later told me he had the same sensation. I went, oh, shit. And then went flying down.
You fell 30 feet?
Well, I fell 30 feet, and I grabbed the rope about 10 feet down because I'm, be able to, when you can change time a little bit or deal with time a little bit, you can think. And so I grabbed the rope, but I burned my hands really bad. You probably can't see it here, but
wow,
skin was hanging down from my hands. But anyway, I hit the ground with my posterior and my shoulder and my back of my head, which I still have a big dent in my head from it.
Jeez. Wow.
But I was still conscious, and the whole cast, this is the moment in Comedy of Errors by Shakespeare where the Antiphili, who are exact twins, are suddenly revealed to each other. People have been having all these, funny encounters with whom they thought were the same person. In fact, we're different twins with different, backgrounds. And this is the moment that the twins are revealed to each other. And so the whole cast is on stage, like 20 other people, and they all have their back to me when I come down the line, right? And so normally they heard, boom, just as I touched the ground. This time they heard nothing, and then bang!
Wow.
Oh, my God.
And Howard, my partner, who was the other Antipholus, turned around and saw me lying there with my eyes up in my sockets. And I kind of looked at Howard and said, "Am I all right?" And Howard went, "Yes." And I still had 10 minutes of the show to do. And I got up and I did it.
Wow.
Now that's show business, okay?
Wow.
That's commitment.
Oh, man.
And I had to juggle with the skin hanging from my fingers. It was terrible.
Oh, my God.
So it's a dangerous job. What can I tell you?
However, you have to say, the name of the play was The Comedy of Errors. And I just think you went too far.
And I did. You can still see that show on it was shot on PBS for great performances. And so you can go on YouTube or something and see it.
Not only did you become master jugglers, but then you took it to a whole new level with the playwriting aspect of it.
Yeah.
That's what made you unique.
Yeah, well, we were the first people to actually, the vaudevillians, the first people to make it to Broadway. We first played Broadway in 1983 at what was then called the Ritz Theater, which is now called the Walter Kerr. And yeah, that was absolutely amazing.
How did this happen for you? Did you have management?
We did have management. We had management, but it wasn't really that. It was that we had gotten asked to do ABC's Winter on Ice or whatever. They had an ice show every year. And the guy who was the producer for that was a guy named Mace Neufeld. You ever heard of him?
Sure,
Red
of course.
October producer. And he also had written for, I think, Ed Sullivan, and he'd been a comedy writer kind of guy, but he was a hard-bitten producer at that point. But he totally related to what we were doing. We were like guys like him, from like the Depression, when there was still vaudeville, and we were doing the same thing. Only instead of a 7-minute act, we were doing 2 hours.
Wow.
Anyway, so we did this show for ABC, and we were on like a little stage on the ice. It was so funny. It was completely ridiculous. Jugglers on ice. For another play. Anyway, and he got real excited and wanted to put us on Broadway.
You had a champion.
We did, yeah.
Who understood what you were doing and helped you realize that dream. I think that's wonderful.
That's what happened.
And look, again, because your career has been so extensive and has gone through so many extraordinary, unique changes, but you're still doing it, right? You just did a performance in Hilton Head.
Yeah, I just did. I think I'm one of the oldest. I'm trying to find out if I am the oldest professional juggler left in the world. I imagine there probably is somebody older than me, but I'm right at the edge there. If I'm not the oldest, I'm right at the edge. But I just did a show. All our shows, of course, got canceled. Our tour from COVID, except for one. It was in South Carolina because they don't care in South Carolina.
No.
Right. So about 3 months ago, my agent calls up and says, "So where's the rooming list?" And I go, "Jeff, what are you talking about?" He says, "For the show." And I go, "There are no shows. What are you talking about? What rooming list?" He says, "The show in South Carolina." I said, "They're all canceled." He said, "No, they never canceled." Right? These shows get booked like 1.5 years, 2 years in advance.
Yeah.
This show was booked before COVID hit, I think in January of 2020. And they had never canceled the show. And so we had to go do it. And I hadn't done a show really in almost 2 years.
Wow.
And so I was like going, I'm 67. Am I going to be able to do this? And what I learned was I didn't even break a sweat. It was like no problem.
Oh.
I had so much fun, except for the fact that nobody in the audience was wearing a mask. But besides that, it was great. And it was actually great for all of us who were doing it because none of us had done anything live like that in so long. And you always wonder, well, can I actually still do it?
Yeah.
So, I'm still doing it. But anyway, I think the original question was, how did we get to 5? And the answer is that we started making it kind of big in 1980. We were actually doing a show at Chicago Fest on Navy Pier in Chicago with Henny Youngman. And, I loved it. We were after Henny Youngman. So every day before our show, we'd go and watch The Master at work. And he was like a machine gun.
Yeah.
Just had them rolling in the aisles. And it was just one joke after the other. It was incredible. Anyway, so while we were there, we got noticed by somebody at the Goodman Theater in Chicago. And they told their higher-ups about it, and they came and watched us when we were playing, if you can believe this, at the Other End, which was also the bitter end at that point, but the Other End Cafe in New York, which is a very famous place. Only it wasn't made for juggling. It's a very tiny place. So we had to do half the show off the stage. So we did the show, and people from the Obie committee came, and, people from the Goodman Theater, and suddenly all these theater people showed up, and we won an Obie from doing the show there. The shortest run, the farthest off Broadway is what we said. And we started, and the Goodman Theater made an offer for us to come and play the Goodman Theater. And we did, and we were a huge hit. And we started playing regional theaters starting in 1981, basically. But at that point, Randy, who has always been a computer person, kind of first and foremost, and had worked at Atari with Steve Jobs as a fellow employee of Atari.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
He, basically decided to, he got married and decided that being on the road wasn't for him. And he, of course, had this great other job. So he started working at, I think it was Next Computers at that point, or, maybe Apple and then Next, I can't remember. And then he went to work, and then he came back. So anyway, so when he left, this other guy who was from Seattle, Sam Williams, who was a very funny young man, and really wanted to be in the group, joined the group in 1981. And then when we were about to go to Broadway, we had done this run at the Brooklyn Academy of Music and got this incredible New York Times review. Just like one of those reviews you just like go, oh my God, I won't get many of these in my life.
Which is really kind of all it takes to launch.
Back then it did.
Was the Broadway show really what put you on the map in a big way?
Yeah, the Broadway show. I mean, we've been doing regional theaters, and we were kind of on the map, but the Broadway show definitely was like, the thing that put us in the big time.
Well, Paul, thank you so much for juggling your schedule to be here on such short notice.
Sure.
Absolutely fascinating.
Well, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much, Paul.
Love you very much, and always will.
Bye.
Bye. There was one evening when the Flying Karamazov showed up on my street here in front of this house that I'm in right now in Benedict Canyon in a school bus because they were touring the state and they needed a place to stay. So I invited them up into the house, and I think there was 4 of them at the time, and they all found places to sleep. They tried to teach me how to juggle, and it failed terribly, although I still have the balls that they left me with, but I didn't have the balls to learn it. You know what I mean?
Well, Phil, another great show.
I've known Paul for decades and decades, and I learned more today about juggling from him than I thought was possible.
Yeah.
The insights that he gave us about the musical aspect of it was just mind-boggling to me. I'm so glad we had a chance to talk to him about that.
And it started in a college dorm.
Yeah, that's right. So many things did. And, of course, I caught mononucleosis, a very light case, from a doorknob, just like he did. But unfortunately not from a girlfriend, because we were in an all-male school. You could only catch it from a doorknob back in the 60s.
That was the only upside of getting mononucleosis in 6th grade. They're like, wow, who's your girlfriend?
Yeah, right. Thank you once again for listening to Phil and
Ted's
Sexy Boomer Show. and send money.
So long.
You've been listening to Phil and Ted's Sexy Boomer Show, featuring Phil Proctor and Ted Bonnet and their special guest, Paul Magid, co-founder of the Flying Karamazov Brothers. Music by Eddie Betos and the Nervous Brothers. I'm A. Ernest Guy. Stay tuned for the next episode of Phil and Ted's Sexy Boomer Show, produced by RadioPictures.com, the makers of fine podcasts for seasoned hipsters, man.